Hey guys, Brad M73 here. Today is actually August 28th, 2021, and earlier this week, I think it was on the 26th, might have been on the 25th. No, I think it's the 26th. Giants released this trailer, which is really their first gameplay trailer for Farming Simulator 22. And at first, I wanted to just kind of let sink in what I had just seen. And because for as much as I wanted it to blow my socks off, it really didn't. And I'm going to take this opportunity to go through each scene and kind of detail what I was thinking and feeling as I watched the video. Now, it's not all bad, but it's not all good. So hang on to your horses, and we're going to kind of do a in-depth deep dive analysis of the Farming Simulator 22 gameplay trailer from Gamescom. So starting out in this first scene, and I'm just kind of going to go through and pause things. We see our first scene of the new European map, which is actually based in France. Now we're gonna get the and I'm I don't have the name right in front of me, but we had the three maps, or well, really the two maps. We had a European map and a USA map from Farming Simulator 19. A lot of people, including myself, really kind of felt that the USA map, we had a love-hate relationship. It was a good map, but the thing that we hated about it was that for whatever reason, Giants chose to just throw garbage all over the place in the little town, at the farm. I mean, just everywhere. And then if you go to the Germany map, there's no garbage anywhere. So it almost felt like some kind of tongue-in-cheek statement that every place in the United States there's just garbage everywhere. And I have to actually say, as an American who's been to Germany many times, as well as Austria and a little tiny bit of Switzerland, I was actually quite shocked at the amount of garbage that I saw when I visited Germany. And I'll use Germany just because it's kind of stands out the most. Not only that, but just the amount of graffiti blew my head off. It didn't matter where you went. If you were on the Autobahn and you pulled off at a rest area, there was just graffiti everywhere. Generally, that's not the case in the United States. I'm not saying that it doesn't happen in some places and maybe in some areas more than others, but it was literally every single place that I went while I was in Europe. But anyway, looking at the scene, we've got a nice, clean looking, I guess it's going to be southern France, just kind of judging from the color of the rock. I think those are acacia trees, though if I'm wrong on that, please correct me down in the video description. And I'm pointing out these trees kind of at the upper right. I want to say they're acacias, but I'm not an expert on trees by any stretch of the imagination. What I will notice is the graininess in the sky, which means that they probably added some kind of a film effect to it. Now, we do see some shadows, and actually the shadows on the trees we do see from a much further distance, though it doesn't seem to be consistent. And this may just be because of the time of day this is, but we do see shadows over here, which is really nice. And then I would say generally the scene seems pretty good, though the buildings might be a little bit generic, and the bridge texture I think they could have probably done a little bit better on. But as we move, nothing really in the background changes. But what does change is the leaves in the foreground, which look nice, but they really don't seem to have changed all that much from previous versions of Farming Simulator. So we move into the sideway view where we can see the ground textures along the road of the brick. If I had been Giants, I don't think I would have chosen this shot because it makes the scene feel flat. Now, looking at this as from an outside observer, I don't have any control over the camera's perspective or anything like that, and that definitely changes your perspective of depth and color and lighting and shadow and a lot of things. It affects the brain in ways you can't even imagine, and it really helps to draw you into the game, whereas just watching it, all those little details don't really pop out. But as we're seeing, especially here on the left side where we have a slightly closer view, we can actually see the amount of detail that's in this road surface, which I think is pretty good. But it might not jump out at you right off the bat. I'm going to try to kind of pause at certain points throughout the video. But looking at the terrain, we've got finally the first realistic shadows in a Giants video game. And I'm very hopeful that they're going to track the sun properly. I know that they tried to do that somewhat in Farming Simulator 19, and they tried to do it even in 17, but it was kind of, I mean, I called them out on it back in that day, and it was just really kind of trying to work with the game engine. But I think as we move on through the years, as GPU technology and graphics technology and graphics engines get better and better, there is an expectation that there's going to be more and better lighting and shadows and things like that. And so I do commend Giants for making advances to the Giants engine, but I'm not always sure that it's enough. But we can actually see these, I don't know if these are phone lines or power lines. I would say probably phone lines, but you never know. As well as the shadows, and those actually look pretty good. I do have to say. One thing that I do notice, though, is the ground texture pretty much hasn't changed from the older version. So now we flip up into a horizontal depiction of the world with the FS22 logo coming in. And one thing I'll kind of point out are these lighting effects of the street lights in this little village. Now, looking at the time of day and the amount of lighting that's on the map, I would not find this much lighting realistic. So this actually kind of stands out to me, and it kind of draws me out of the game a little bit. Another thing is I was hoping to see a bit more contrast in the background. And instead, they kind of use this fog effect filter, but it's very subtle, just more like haze, not really fog, but, just atmospheric haze. The drawback to that is it makes the environment look relatively flat. So over here where this castle or monastery or whatever it is, we see a little bit more contrast. This actually looks pretty good, but over here on the right, it just looks kind of flat and uninteresting. But again, that's one of those things where, if you have camera control, it's going to seem a lot more different. If you can walk around and move and you can see all the subtle changes of the graphics engine, it's probably going to come out and look a little bit different once you're actually playing it. So again, we've got some of the details. I want to see if I can back this up a little bit. So yeah, we've got, again, decent textures here. One thing that does look really nice with the path texture, it does look like it actually has relief, meaning it's probably a flat texture, but they've used different types of graphics to create the illusion that those little cracks are actually 3D when they're actually probably just 2D. Same thing goes with the rock on the walls, which I think looks really good. Looking off in the distance, this scene is a little bit better, and I think it's kind of just a different position from what we were looking at before. But I really like that we're seeing shadows really off in the way off in the distance. And actually right down this line right here is a perfect example. In previous farming simulators, we might have seen kind of like, I always called it the ring of death. We would see one ring up close, especially if you're on a field, where the textures would kind of stop, and then you would kind of go to like just nothingness as far as like a crop texture. And if you've played Farming Simulator for as long as I have, and especially if you've watched my series in the past, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about, because I've called it out many, many, many times. But the same thing would be true for shadows, whether it be on vehicles or trees or whatnot. And specifically in Farming Simulator 19, maybe lesser so in Farming Simulator 17, that trees, in the foreground or closer to you would have a shadow, but then further away, they wouldn't have shadows. And if you were standing way up on a high point or something like this where you could see a long way, you would see trees with shadows, 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 and then all of a sudden, like, all the rest of the trees wouldn't have shadows. So it was kind of like, what in the heck is going on here? But I do like the lighting. I do like the clouds. Nothing really. The map looks really nice. Looking forward to checking this map out. So that's pretty cool. Here we get to see the water and the reflections. This doesn't really look like anything that's going to blow your socks off. It looks fairly similar to how it was in Farming Simulator 19. We've got some nice trees and things like that. But again, they still look very Farming Simulator-ish. Here, now this scene, it's like we've got all the lighting. We don't have a lot of contrast from shadows. We do get to see these reflections, but I think this scene feels very flat and lifeless. We just got a little bit of something there. Let's see if I can go back. There we go. So again, here we can see the shadows a little bit better. Some of the lighting reflecting off the water there just to the left of the tower. That looks really nice. This almost seems like more of an HDR because looking at this view, especially with a camera, I would have expected this, especially with as much light as being reflected right here. I would have expected this to be a lot darker, as well as this little, I guess, cathedral or something down here on the bottom right. So just an observation here. Now we get to see our first tractor, which is the Massey Ferguson 8S205. Again, we have this film grain effect, and I think it's kind of making the image look a little bit flat. And then, let's see here, I'm trying to, yeah, nothing really noticeable here. Now down here on the field, though, this basically kind of looks like Farming Sim. Doesn't, you know, it doesn't look like there's anything incredibly new. We might have some new flowers, these red flowers, and it looks like there might be some blue or purples in here. Like I see something around here, a little blue there, maybe something down here and here, as well as the CLAAS tractor. But again, we've got that film grain effect, which I think kind of takes something out of the image. Like I would have rather have seen straight up gameplay footage. I'm just going to kind of pause. Here again, it's like, I feel like the image is, there's not enough contrast. I would have expected the buildings to be much darker than they are. And it just, especially like up underneath the parasols here, or umbrellas, depending on where you're from, I would have expected to see a little bit more darkness up underneath there. And it just makes things look flat and a lot less realistic and more cartoony, if that's an apt description. I think the chairs and everything look pretty nice, but it kind of takes me out of the realism of the game a little bit, because it seems like some of these buildings are a little bit more cartoony than they could have been. I don't know if that's a fair assessment. Let me know what you think down in the comment section. Yeah, that was just my first impression. And looking at this scene again, paused like this, it's still my impression again as I look at this. And again, the buildings, I think some of these brick textures and things like that look fine, but I think there needs to be a deeper contrast in some of these shadow layers that I'm just not seeing. And there also seems to be, and maybe this is just because there's no transition effect. Typically around a building like this, especially if it's built with old rock, you'd actually have some staining over the years that would be directly around the building. And I don't, where things like mosses and things like that tend to grow. I don't see any of that here, and that, again, it leads me more to this perspective of the building just being kind of like transplanted into a cartoony environment. So I was hoping to see a little bit more detail in this area. And then again, all of the shadowing all through here looks very straight and uniform. You don't see really any fluctuation in any of the shadow patterns. So again, I'm just not sure how I feel about it. The vehicle looks great, or the tool, I'm sorry, here. It looks like we've got a cultivator, and it looks great. Again, we've got that film grain pattern effect throughout the whole video, and I think that kind of pulls a little bit of the detail out of that. Right here, kind of a generic shot of one of the tractors coming around a bend, something like that. We get to see the grass textures and a little bit of the ground texture. The tractor, it just kind of looks run-of-the-mill for Farming Simulator. I am seeing some pixelation, like especially like along the Massey-Ferguson line, and especially around this tire. I mean, if you look at this tire, how pixelated that looks, and in parts of the, looks like it's probably some type of a cedar. And the antenna right here, you can see the aliasing or lack thereof. This leads me to believe that this was almost taken from a lower resolution, maybe something like 720p, and then upgraded to 1080. Unfortunately, they only released this video in 1080, not 1440 or what is it? 2160, the 4K? I always forget what that one is. But yeah, we only got a 1080p trailer to work with this time around. So, again, I don't know if they took this from a low resolution and bumped up the resolution. Actually, I'm even noticing the stepping here on the mirror. That really jumps out at me. That's something that you do not want to see in any game. And I especially wasn't expecting it from the latest version of Farming Sim, that's for sure. Here we have another view. Now this one looks fine. I don't see any of the, I see a little bit right along the top. There's a little bit of that stair stepping right there. Again, I don't know if they recorded this at 1080p. If I was Giants, I would have definitely rendered out at 4K and then cropped it down to 1440p, and you'll completely eliminate that. But it just looks like they started with a lower resolution and went up to a higher resolution. So it looks like, yeah, we've got a Kuhn, probably seed. I don't know if this is a seeder. No, well, it's got a cultivator on it. So I don't know if it's a cultivator seeder or if it's like a fertilizer. Again, I'm not, people are like, Brad's the expert on farming. No, I'm really not. My knowledge of farming equipment is very limited, probably limited to, Farming Simulator and a little bit of what we have on our farm. But again, in the background, I was kind of hoping to see more contrast in the shadows, basically darker shadows, especially because we've got long shadows here. See how long these shadows are? That means we're in the evening or possibly even the morning. You're going to have long shadows then, and they're not going to be this dark or this light. They need to be darker. So, and again, field textures kind of looks like what we've come to expect from Farming Simulator. So nothing's really jumping out at me. I think the buildings look pretty cool. Okay, so here we are. Oh, this is a cedar. That was a cedar. We've got the long shadows again, couple tractors. Well, one tractor, one combine. So yeah. Detail on the lamppost looks nice. Trees look like trees from Farming Simulator. It doesn't look like anything's changed there. Dragging and dropping assets from old version into new version. The road textures look all right. They don't look like they're custom crafted, as we can see kind of right here. It looks like they're just making pre-built elements and just plopping them into place. So nothing is knocking my socks off there. Nope. We're going through some kind of a gateway. We're kind of going through just a bunch of really quick clips that I can't really analyze, but in this one particularly, we have, again, a very grainy image, which I think detracts from the trees in the background, a lack of lighting contrast, which when you don't have that contrast, you don't get the depth. And again, I'll have to play the game and actually run around in a scene like this to see if, well, maybe I'm the wrong one, and maybe it does look really good. But just in this scene, it just looks very flat. It doesn't really fill me with, oh my gosh, this looks awesome. I can't wait to play Farming Simulator. Here, we've got the combine on the field. Somebody had snapped this picture and sent it to me and been like, oh, here's the New Holland mod for Farming Simulator 19 on the blah, blah, blah modded map. I would have been like, oh, okay, cool. There's nothing really here that's standing out as far as making me think that this is going to be all new. Just not. Same here. Just looks like this could be a modded map for Farming Simulator 19. We can definitely see that the map border is probably right over here on the left side because we have this area outside the matte border which is completely generic and devoid of any life. That's something that I wish that Giants would get much better at handling, but for whatever reason they don't, and that, I think, more than many things in the game, really takes me out of the game. Field textures look largely the same right here, as does the texture of the straw. But it looks like got the little Massey Ferguson tractor. Everything else looks nice. There's also some kind of a blur effect, and I don't know if this is something that they're doing in-game or if it's something that the video production company has done. It's a little bit distracting. I'm not sure that I like it, but we'll just have to kind of see how the engine works in November when the game gets released. This right here, again, just seems very flat. No shadow that I can really discern on the Ponzi. It looks like, I don't know if that's the Scorpion. Yeah, I think that's the Scorpion there. You know, we've got a deer. I don't know if you guys have known, but there is going to be some wildlife in the game finally. We've been asking for that for years and years. But again, I'm not seeing any shadows on any of the grass or in the bushes. It just looks very flat and generic. I would have expected to see these kind of graphics 5 or 6 years ago, not so much in 2021, 2022, and 2023 as this game is rolling out. I think they could have done a little bit better on these flower textures as well, because you can definitely see the stair stepping. Usually what they do is they will create these textures in a lower detail format and actually blow them up a little bit, and that's why we're seeing that stair stepping there. So we can also see some of the parallax stretching that's happening once the flowers are viewed at from different perspectives, most notably this one, and that just makes them look flat and uninteresting. And you know, they don't look like flowers, they just look like flat pieces of paper that are sticking up from there. So again, I think they could have done better. Not really we're seeing a little bit of a shadow effect here. I think they could go way darker, especially in between the tires. I am seeing some sunlight shadows coming through here though. Let's see if I can get that in. Yeah, there's a little bit coming through there, but overall, again, we just have a lack of contrast in the shadows. I do see the lighting effect there coming from the, you know, wherever the sun is. The sun's probably way up off the screen here. But I don't know, it just feels very flat. And again, if this had been like a scene from one of the Farming Simulator 19 maps, I would have totally bought it. I'd have been like, oh yeah, I don't really remember that area, but okay, I believe you. Yeah. Now here we have I think this is like a chipper. Looks like we're heading up to a railroad track. This actually looks pretty good. Below the truck looks good. We've got a lot of contrast. I think so far this is probably the best contrast that I've seen as far as lighting. Maybe a little bit better lighting on the truck. We can see the truck shade on the ground, but we don't really see the shadow of this arm on the truck itself or these other bits. Again, entity shadows. It looks like we might see the shadow here and here, so I don't know, maybe part of that tree is shading this truck. I don't know. Yep, he's driving up to the train tracks here. The train goes by, typical generic train. We've got a couple scenes that flash past really quickly. Again, we've got this Ponzi oh no, it's a Ponzi Cobra this time. So a little bit different than a Scorpion. The tree cutting texture looks exactly the same. The tree bark looks the same. Grass looks the same. Pretty much everything looks the same. Looking off in the distance, again, in the trees, there's no major contrast in the shadows, which makes this image look flat. There's not much of a difference between this green here and this green up in the trees and the green back in here. There should be, and I'm a little bit disappointed in what I see here. You know, from a shadowing and lighting perspective at least. So I guess somebody climbed up here and sawed off the top of the tree there. I don't know. That's kind of funny. So we got the tree tipping over. Again, this all looks pretty much, whoops, got the chipper there working for a split second. This all looks pretty good. Actually, I like the texture on the back of this chipper arm. All the detail in the machinery looks amazing. What I would like to see, especially as the machine is used, is a lot of this green paint should wear off. Or maybe it should be worn off ahead of time, I'm not really sure, but obviously the machines look brand spanking new and never used before. So I would definitely love it if over time they did show some use, but whether that's going to happen, I sincerely doubt it. But yeah, this basically looks like the chippers that we've seen before. It'll probably operate the same. You know, in the background here, again, it just looks kind of flat. We do have some little generic shadows out here. Nothing knocking my socks off. And yeah. Now here we've got a look at the vineyards, or I'm not sure if these are. I can't remember the types of plants. I'd have to pull it up, and I'm not going to right now. But actually, this looks pretty cool. I've got this little tiny Fendt tractor. This is like almost a lawnmower, just about. And it's pulling a sprayer for pesticides, since you don't spray fertilizer on trees like this. So this is definitely pesticide. Call it what you want, but they're trying to kill insects here. The Hardy Mercury 4000. So this looks pretty cool. My cousins actually have one of these up on our farm that they use on their apple orchard. This one looks really tiny. The one that my cousins have looks to be maybe about twice this size. And then we've got this piece of equipment, which is the 9000. No, I don't know what this is. And I guess this is picking the grapes. Now, looking at the grapes, they just kind of look like flat textures, subtly 3D-ized. I was hoping they'd look a little bit better. And then we've got, you know, obviously the grapes have been picked, and it's just throwing the stems out the back. The New Holland Broad. Oh, it's the Brad. The Brad 970L. No, the Broad 970L. So, yep. And you just drive it down the line, and it picks all your grapes. So you can see grapes there. No grapes. Grapes on the left. No grapes on the right. So that's pretty neat. And then we've got this little piece of equipment that you drive down, and it essentially just removes all the dead stems from the vine in preparation for the next season's growth. Here again, this scene looks kind of flat. Doesn't really look that interesting. Yeah, I mean, it could be anywhere, just about. Just nothing is jumping out as being super impressive. Now we've got this this tool here, which I think what this tool is doing is it's digging up rocks from the surface. See, in different parts of the world, there's, you know, the terrain is very rocky, and as you plow and as you cultivate, a lot of times you'll bring a lot of these big heavy rocks to the surface, which can damage seeders and planters and cause thousands of dollars of damage. So what some farmers will do in these areas, probably most of them will do, is they bring out these little, you know, these type of trailers, which actually dig up all the rocks. They kind of move from the outside in, and then they're picked up inside of a little hopper where they can carry them and dump them off the field. A lot of times they'll sell them to like landscape places, or maybe you know, rock quarries that specialize in different types of rocks and selling them on. So those kind of things do happen. Yeah, there was a really super quick view, like literally 1/10 of a second. And this is where the rocks get kicked back into the hopper, and then we'll probably be able to take them off the field somewhere and dump them out. Now, I think the next few scenes, we've got some time-lapse effects of the lighting engines, so we'll kind of go through those. So not only are we going through a time-lapse, we're also going through a season lapse, because you can see that the leaves are starting to change as we go through this scene here. See that? See how they're changing? And then, of course, in this next scene, it's definitely the fall, and it goes from the fall to no leaves. And at the same time, we've got lighting effects coming in, moving into night. I do really like, I will say that I really like, see if I can stop it at the right point here. I really like the sky right here. I think this is probably one of the best scenes. And I think what Giants has done for this trailer is they've put this grain effect over and this weird blur effect. And I think that's done more to ruin the look of the gameplay trailer than anything. I don't remember them doing this before in previous years for promoting Farming Simulator, so I don't know why they chose to do it this time. I know I'm being like super critical, but I mean, come on. I was really hoping to have my socks knocked off. So here we're moving in, from fall into winter. So we're seeing a time lapse again of the snow kind of building up on top of the house and around the yards and whatnot. And then we've got snow on the roads. Well, not really on the roads, but off the roads. So here it looks like it's going to mainly work like pushing silage. And if you guys have used Seasons in the past or any of the snow mods that have really been around since Farming Sim 2013, I'm pretty sure. I know that there were snow mods for 15. I'm pretty sure there were a few for 2013. Looks like it's going to work pretty much like those. Maybe the graphics are a little bit better, but yep. So we've got that. These are some of the new field textures for the cultivating. So we've got most likely this on the left is cultivated, and then this is the after harvesting of some something, whether it's wheat or something else. Could be looks kind of like wheat. So we've got the John Deere tractor pulling this monster cultivator, which is pretty cool. And actually, I think they were talking about this at FarmCon. I think you can cultivate this multiple times, because right here you can see, well, it doesn't look fully cultivated. So it's like you can go over it again, and I think then it'll be fully cultivated. But I could be wrong on that, but it seems like I'm just trying to recall what I remember from back in middle of July, so over a month ago. And then here we go back to the tree grinder again. Not sure. And then I'm just really just unpausing and pausing this to try to get all of the different scenes. Again, we've got the grain effect. We've got this weird blur effect on the sides. I think the intent of that is to draw your eye to the middle so that you can see all of the straw cuttings coming out the back and being blown out the sides. This actually looks pretty good. Let's see, the Alo Scorpio 550. I'm not sure what that is. Oh, that's the rock grind, or the rock picker upper, I think. Pretty good contrast on the tractor. I can definitely see, like, right behind the tire here, I can see some video artifacting. This is likely from their, and not to say that it wasn't filmed in or recorded in engine, but after you process the video a few times, it's not going to look quite the same. So yeah, I definitely noticed that. And again, like right here, we can see that the grapes are most likely two slices of a texture. So we've got a horizontal flat slice, and then we've got a vertical slice there. We can see kind of the same thing over here. They're not 3D at all. I kind of was expecting them to be 3D when I was looking at the scene a little bit earlier, but now that I'm looking at it from this view, they might be 3D on the vines, and they might, when they're spitting this through, because I'm guessing that the way this machine works, it's going to spit out the harvested grapes onto this little conveyor belt, and then this conveyor belt's going to sweep them into the holding tank where we're never going to see them again. So this could just be something that you only see for a split second anyway. And yeah, I mean, see how quickly they got shot back in there. And again, here we're looking at all the cuttings coming out the back. Man, that's so fast. Looks nice, but man, it's just there's so much to see and so little time to see it. Again, more cultivating. This looks like we are, this is baling here, little baler. The cedar over there. Yeah, see how this ground looks fully cultivated. So yeah, I think you can go through and actually cultivate multiple times. There's the Scorpio picking up rocks again. This is actually seems kind of interesting to me, and I'm actually looking forward to going and picking up some rocks. Rock Simulator 22, or Rock Farming Simulator. Trees falling down again. Nothing's really knocking my socks off here, and I think that's going to be it. Yep, Farming Simulator 22 pre-order now. Well, guys and gals, that has been kind of my in-depth analysis on the Farming Simulator 22 Gamescom gameplay trailer, which just came out a few days ago. And I've watched it a bunch of times, and it just looks like Farming Simulator. I think for everybody familiar with Farming Simulator, we're all going to jump in. We're really going to love it. For those who are new to it, this is what you're going to be introduced to. I still think it's going to be a great game. It's definitely going to be the best farming game out there, in my opinion. Should you go buy it? Well, if you're a diehard farming sim fan, yes, I think you definitely should, jump on the bandwagon and pick it up. If you're not a farming simulator, if you've never bought a farming simulator game before and you're looking at one to get, this is going to be the one to get. I would not say buy Farming Simulator 19 right now unless you get it super duper cheap. Just wait until November. Again, comes out November 22nd. Some people were thinking it actually comes out November of 2022. No, it comes out November 22nd of 2021. So just a few months from now, and we'll all be playing Farming Simulator together. So those are really my thoughts. I am looking forward to it. I'm not like buzzing with excitement or anticipation or anything like that because I've got so many other games to play right now. It's not even funny. I'm definitely looking forward to it. I will have a series on Farming Simulator 22 when it releases. A lot of people have been asking about that. Obviously, a lot of people asking about why I quit playing Farming Simulator 19. That mainly just boiled down to burnout. I played so much of it, both in my series, in multiplayer, and just by myself, that I really burnt myself out on it. So I've tried to keep myself away from Farming Simulator so that I'll be able to come into Farming Simulator 22 fresh and revitalized, and hopefully I'll really enjoy it. The new map for Farming, especially the American map for Farming Simulator 22, I think looks awesome. It looks like the area where I'm from. So I'm really looking forward to that and checking that out and getting started with it. And then I'm hoping that we get some more game modes as well. From what I've seen, it doesn't look like there's going to be like a story mode or anything like that, which does disappoint me a little bit. But we're just going to have to see what the future holds. But for now, if you like this video, if you're excited about Farming Simulator 22, hit that like button. If you want to leave a comment, I would definitely love to hear your opinion on what you thought about the gameplay trailer. If you're really looking forward to it, if you're going to skip this one, let me know down in the comment section. Last but not least, if you have not done so, please subscribe for this and many more videos. You'll get notified, and especially when I start doing Farming Simulator 22 content this November. So that's going to be it. This has been my Farming Simulator 22 Gamescom gameplay trailer analysis, overview, whatever you want to call it. But I'm Brad M73. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now.